Hello, welcome to Domo Delicious, a channel dedicated to help you to hack Domo, do things that it was never expected to do or engineered to do so that you can make a better experience for your users. I'm your host, Carlos Kemeny. I'm a former principal consultant, strategic advisor to Fortune 250s at Domo, and I am going to cover a lot of the things that I've built and have since done in my own center of excellence for a company called Weave that went to IPO back in 2021. And I've since launched my own company, drumdata.ai, which serves companies, consults, coaches, mentors, strategically advises. And this channel is a way for me to reach out. Please feel free to subscribe to this channel. I'd love for that. In fact, everything that I cover will be available to you, all of the SQL queries, if you subscribe and then send me a DM. That's how you get access to all content. But in the meantime, I'm going to be creating all sorts of content, and you can request different things to be done, and I'll post them. And would love the interaction. And of course, if there's any services that I can provide, I'd love to do that. And so feel free to ask me about those. So today we're going to cover the dynamic table of contents and how you curate a unique experience. Why is this important? Well, I've worked with several 250s, and in fact, this came up with a Fortune 10 where they did not like the navigation experience. The executives would get lost when they'd go through trying to get trained on this. The left-hand nav, content would get lost, and the experience is not necessarily a navigation experience that's easy out of the box. There's a learning curve, and that's not good when you're trying to get adoption for especially executives who don't have time to learn a new tool. And so when you come into Domo, it is really nice to see a navigation experience that they're used to. So here you might put in the edit dashboard, all you do is you create a text card, a note card, and then have hyperlinks to pages that you want to guide them to. And so that's a very easy thing to do, to implement, and it creates a navigation experience that's just simple. If I go to the operations side, I go there, I go back to home, I'm back to my table of contents. So this works very well. Next, a table of contents card. And you'll see this in all of my videos, I label. And the reason why I label is because there's no assumption that a user knows what they're looking at. So here we have a title, even though it's the same as the title up here. I put a description for every page, and you should as well. And as well as link into what we're going to use today is the governance data set. And always put in a last updated date, which is the max time for the last report of any of the data sets that are on this page. And I'll show you how to do that. And the description, which is interesting for the governance data set especially, you don't have the ability to pass through page descriptions unless you do this. So this is a secret for you. But edit card title and description for a note card. You'll be able to put the card title and then a description for that note card. And so I've done that here. And then because I've done that, I can pass through that metadata into a card, description in the metadata, which is found in the governance data set. And so that's a little bit of a trick for you for getting page titles. And I always, by the way, use page description for the card title so that I can filter that out. And that's what I've done here. Now, next, I've created a table card that is pretty simple. All it is a name of a page, a description of that page, which again goes to the card. There's a card description, and I filtered it I've created a case one, I believe. Let's take a look at this card, and I'll show you how this works. So we're going to go in. So I've created a beast mode for the page title. You'll see case one, card title equals page description, then page title. So that's as simple as it is for the beast mode. We also have the description, and that's a card description. And by the way, the title of the page is, and I'll show you how I've renamed all of this, but it's name in the page data set from the governance data set. And so I like to be much more clear on the naming convention here. And then a URL. So how do I get a URL created? Well, we have my instance right here. I have max page ID. And the reason why I do a max page ID is because you'll see in my data flow that this will create a page per user that has access to the Domo page. And that's how I create this. And then we use PDP to then match the email of the logged in user to the email of the users that have access. And so this creates many different of the same page in this list. And using a max page ID basically groups all of that, so there's only one, and you only want one. You don't want 10 of the same page listed in the table of contents. It's much more confusing. And of course, by the way, I'm saving the calculation on the data set all the way through. And then this target equals underscore self. This is this is HTML speak when you're linking to URLs, but this basically opens up the same page in the same browser session, but it's without opening a new tab. It's the same tab that this is allowing you to navigate. And I like that experience more than just opening up new tabs. It gets very messy in the browser. So that's all this card is. And I've cleaned this up where one last little thing, the card description is going to be what you're referring to, but we use a data label page description because it's a page when you're using that. And that's all it really is. So now the links allow me to link out to different pages. And this is the navigation experience I'm describing. So I can navigate back to home here, but that link lets you go out. And so this is really, really positive. It gives you a description for the page. It gives you, of course, all the pages for that user. And then the PDP is available there. So I'm going to first go into the data set. So we're going to go over to the warehouse, and I'm going to show you the governance data set. All we do with the governance data set is basically type in governance in my connectors, pull up the Domo governance data set. I'm going to go to the third-party account that I've already set up, but really all you're doing is you're using the instance, that first part of your instance name, so that everything before .domo.com in your address when you log into Domo is what you're going to use for that that first box to set up a data set instance. And then you're also going to go to the security, the admin menu, get an access token. If you're not an admin, you can request that from your admin, but you're going to generate an access token, which is found in the settings or the admin menu right here. And then you're going to click on the little key, which is authentication. And then you'll click on access tokens, and then we'll generate an access token. And all you have to do there is maybe put a description here that's reflective. You put your name, and then you set an expiration date. And that will create a key that then you can use in that second field when setting up a governance data set. And then you connect. And what happens is after you connect, you'll click into it, you'll put next, and you will have a bunch of different reports that basically are data sets that you'll set up. And what you'll do in this instance is you'll make one for each of these. And so you'll go through, add these data sets in. And what you'll do is you'll set it for every day. I recommend doing this at midnight, 1 a.m., and then maybe staggering it out and making sure that everything is updating on a daily basis. And you'll set up your data set. Now, the last thing that I want to make sure that you do is to use a naming convention that points to this being a governance data set. So I always use governance and then dash and then whatever the report name is. And that will be the data set name. And of course, you can put a data set description, which is always recommended. But that is specifically the naming convention I've used here. Okay, once you've set that all up, you'll have a bunch of data sets. And let me talk through. And remember, if you subscribe to this channel and DM me, then I will send you all of this so that you can just dump it into your instance, these queries, so that it will be easy and something that you can set up very quickly. So here, what I've done is I have added all of the data sets in Domo from that governance report. And there's a few that I didn't need to. So again, I'll refer to that in my documentation. But I've created a lot of the index SQL queries to make sure that as I'm grouping all of these things that it's efficient. And I'm doing very simple joins. So for example, here, I'm taking the pages data set and tying that in using a left join with pages and users. And you'll see each of these data sets, but in this example, the pages and users shows all of the user access to each of these pages. And I'm putting that onto the pages data set, which is more around the details of those pages. And I do that on page ID. And again, you see my naming convention that, instead of just title on the pages, I put page title, because we're going to be joining it onto the cards data set and the data fields data set and the beast mode data set. And so with all of that, it can get very confusing very quick. But what this looks like after we've done this data flow is something that's really, really useful. And I don't think that most people that I've worked with have really leveraged the governance data set enough. And what you get is, data set that has all the pages, the page owner, the number of cards on a page. You get things like the username for the person, again, who has access to this page. You can get the email, and that's important, and I'll show you why. And the IDs, by the way, and that's so that we can pass in links. We get the cards that are on that page. We get the collections. We get the number of cards in the collections, the card descriptions, the card owner. We get the card types. We get things like card last modified date and the data sets that are tied to those cards. If we tie in the data set database or the data set, and we can get the description of the data set. We can get the column count, the row count, and so on. One of the things that I find really important to use oftentimes, and again, this is where that note card that I have, it references the report last run data set. So that's really nice, or from the card data set. It's that report last run field. So I can pass that through dynamically on a note card to show when it was last updated. And then we have if PDP was enabled, and then we have the field names. This is really beneficial as well. The field names allow you to create a searchable index of all of the fields that are used on the cards, as well as the beast modes and their formulas, which allow you to do some really great searching things for users. So I've just shown you all of this. Now, one of the things that this is kind of a trick that's important when you're using the pages and users. The pages and users data set actually leverages both usernames and the groups. And you'll see that here, where you're going to have basically a user that's represented based on a group instead of a user. So here we have, I'm going to show you how this looks like in the data set. You have some empty users here because the group is referred to. And so we don't like that because then we don't have users that we can tie an email to. And so then we have to also do the users in the groups data set to join on. So you see how you leverage these so that I can explode this data set and then I have all of the users that are filled in. So that's why we have this data flow. It's so that we can build out this extensive data set that we can then leverage with PDP. So let's go through now our table of contents PDP, because this is how you achieve this, where now I'm going to go into the data set. And you can access, of course, the data set in multiple ways and get to the PDP. But here you'll see that my governance policy, which again, you want to enable your PDP and you'll add a policy. And here, what I've already done is I've set up the data access that uses the column name in my data flow and that data set, the page user email. Again, remember my naming convention makes it easy to find. So page user email, this is the person who has access to those pages, and it's their email. And I'm going to filter by a managed attribute. And that attribute is one of the default attributes in your instance, which is email. So that's the logged in user email needs to match the page user email, the page user access email, right? And as I do that, then anytime that somebody comes into this instance, they're going to see the things that they have access to on that table of contents. So that's pretty simple, and it's not a big task. Again, you'll have to use the user data set, which has those emails into it, and latch that on using the page and users and then the users data set. And again, that's all found in that SQL code that I'll share with you. I should note that if you use the data flow with a SQL data flow versus the Magic ETL, the Magic ETL wins. And there's various reasons for that. I'm sure this documented quite a few places. So you can build that out, and that will actually make it faster. And so this will depend on how big your instance is, and it may get to be where you have so much sprawl that this gets to be a pretty lengthy data set and data flow process. But again, there's a lot of value in this. So that's a very quick way of showing you how to do this. Again, let me show you how this would look if you were now a different user coming in, and what that experience looks like. Remember, I had two different pages on this page document here, this table of contents, but I just logged in as a different user, and I only have one now. And so that's because I don't have access as this user to that other page. Now, let me just show you, if I click into the operations, I still can request access. But at the end of the day, this is exactly how you create a navigation experience for executives. And you may not put that navigation menu in a place where people don't have any access at all, so that they don't get this terminal screen and can't navigate back. So these are some considerations for you. This works very well. It worked very well for a client. I'm going to show you over the next few videos how to make this even more exciting, using sorting and using other exciting things like the activity log and joining that onto this data flow, so that you can create a much even more refined table of contents experience. We'll also go over things like how to leverage this data set even more. So here we have the visuals. If I click into, let's say, table of contents, then what I'm going to see is all the cards now that are there, along with the descriptions and the links to those cards, as well as the last report run for those specific visuals on that page. And then I also have here a filter set up to search across the fields that are available. So if I were to put page ID, again, that's not something that a user would be looking for necessarily as an important field, but let's say it was revenue or sales, they could see all of those places where that metric is being used and see if that's available in this. So we're going to kind of go over that as well and how you do that. We'll also go over things like how do you then link this up to Python script, and how you can create your own semantic similarity, which is fancy for using some form of AI to look at a search term and do that for free instead of using apps that may be very expensive. We can show you how to hack that as well, so you can search across the instance things like a card description or a page description or even a field description. And we'll go through kind of your Uber governance, golden data set governance, which is allowing someone to search for sales, and it will pull up things that have been previously defined and certified, and how that will come here, and you can search that, and then it will show you all the cards or the pages that are available for that. So thank you for joining this video again, or this channel, and for watching this video. And remember, subscribe and DM me, and I'll send you all of the SQL queries that are needed for this. And feel free to ask me any questions.